Hi, Tone. Hi, Joe. I've sent you a speaker invite if you guys have received it. Hey, Tone, how are you? All good? We can hear you.
Okay, great. Wow, I was actually I was out the last several hours to do a bunch of errands. I can't believe I just saw the price. I had actually had no idea the price crashed in the last. It had to be in the last 2 hours or something. Oh wow, no, it started crashing at 11 a.m. Yeah, no, I actually had no idea that the price was down this much. None whatsoever.
Yeah, we just went below 41, I think, a few minutes back.
Yeah, it actually looks absolutely terrible. I see no stopping this.
Well, hopefully, I mean, I don't want to be the person which brings bad news, but I'm happy. Bitcoin above 40K is still bullish in my eyes, and yeah, it's a healthy dip. Let's see how it goes. Hey, Joe, how are you?
Yes, good afternoon. How's everyone doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So, guys, let's start off, or shall we give people another 5 minutes to join in? 5 minutes or so, or 2 minutes? 5 minutes is way too much.
Yeah, we can give people a couple of minutes. Joe, how you been? Haven't talked to you in a few weeks. What's new?
Is there a problem with audio again? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh,
You're going
I
on mute often again.
Were you able to hear me?
Yeah.
I did not hear you. I didn't say something.
Oh, Joe, you can't. Joe can't hear me. I
No,
think.
I
Just
can
double
hear you
check
now.
that he can't
I
hear.
can hear you now. It was glitching for a minute.
Okay,
I hear
good.
you now. Tone, go ahead. Tone?
No, I was just asking what's new with you in the last couple of weeks.
Either he doesn't want to answer or he's not able to hear that specific question. I'm not sure. Joe, if you can hear me, Tone was just asking you, how have you been in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I've been really good. Sorry, I'm going to jump down and come back. Twitter Spaces sucks. Hang on a second.
Yeah,
So,
it's a
Tone,
giant mess.
let's start off. We'll wait for Joe to join in again quickly, but let's start off, guys. So, welcome to the Financial Summit's Twitter space. We are a bi-weekly space, midweek, and then end of week, so kind of weekend. So, this is our first space for this week, and luckily or unluckily for us, today the price action has been really, really bearish. We have seen a nice a nice rejection after the ETF approval for BTC. We have not seen any positive price action thereon, and looks like BTC wants to create either a higher low or basically, dump further down before halving. So, not sure. But Tone, what are you looking at? How do you think this BTC price action is coming up from your perspective?
Yeah, so I think that there's more underlying selling going on than buying. It's very, very clear based on daily flows that GBTC is selling more Bitcoin every single day than all the other ETFs combined buying Bitcoin. So all this demand that people were expecting that was supposed to come into all of these ETFs, A, it's non-existent, and B, the rotation out of GBTC is into these other ETFs, and I contributed to that because I sold my GBTC in order to buy some of the other ETFs. So far, I only own BlackRock one, but I may buy a couple of the others. And also rotation out of MicroStrategy, rotation out of some of the miners. Clearly, there is way more selling pressure on Bitcoin than there is buying pressure. And once again, it shows that while you buy the rumor and you sell on the news, I've been talking about selling on the news for months, if not months, leading up to the day of the big announcement by the SEC. It's working out exactly like I've expected. My ultimate low for this move is in the $36,000 range. And if we make it to that $36,000 area, I would be interested in buying the dip in that area, 36, 37,000. Below that, there's no support until 30K, but I really think that it will find support in the $36,000 to $38,000 area.
That would be a very healthy retracement, in my opinion, a very good area. I think it would basically put us somewhere near the golden pocket, or just below the 0.5 pip of the recent move, if I'm not mistaken. Well, that's good to know. So, do you think that this whole correction in one way or the other, is it down to the flows which are coming out of GBTC and that are going into, because right now we have seen around 7K worth of inflows and 11K out from GBTC and 7K into others. So that's like minus 4K BTC overall. Do you think that is corresponding? That's the reasoning behind this?
To me, that's the main reason, other than a lot of people have bought that were interested in buying and there's just nobody left to buy. I've been just busy all day. I haven't had a chance to look at today's numbers. It looks like I need to track these numbers day by day. I do have that spreadsheet and all the links in that spreadsheet to point you to the data. I really wanted to go through this data before market closes. I hope I don't lose this day's data, because if you don't click that link every day, you kind of lose the data. I don't know what other people are doing this, but my guess is that GBTC has sold more Bitcoin than others have bought. But without me actually verifying each of these numbers, I can't really state that for a fact.
The numbers that I was telling was from yesterday, like until yesterday. But also today morning, GBTC Grayscale
Yeah,
sent around
your
700.
numbers definitely aren't factoring in. I mean, as of today, what do you call it? iShares alone has over 25,000 Bitcoin. And yesterday they had 16,000 Bitcoin. So that's just one of the other ETFs. But I know Grayscale is selling like crazy. And I really should have today's numbers up. They sold in one day, from 2 days ago till today. Where is their amount of Bitcoin? That's 592,000. They sold 17,000 Bitcoin in the last 24 hours, not including today. So this morning they had 592,000 Bitcoin, and the day before they had 606,000 Bitcoin. So that's 16,000 Bitcoin in as of this morning that they sold from the day prior. So I'm assuming, based on the big crash today, they probably sold another 20,000 Bitcoin or something like that.
Yeah, sure. That does make sense. But also on the other hand, the GBTC CEO basically came out, I think yesterday evening, evening, and when he was asked that how will Grayscale compete with these high fees compared to other ETFs, he said that they differentiate themselves with size, liquidity, and track record. Like, do you think that these three parameters is worth the 100 basis point difference in the fees which they're putting out?
Absolutely not. And he's saying, yes, they do differentiate themselves, size, liquidity, and history, but all three are being exponentially eroded. Their size is getting destroyed. At this pace, they're going to lose 50% of their Bitcoin. They're going to lose 50% of their size within a month or less at this pace. And therefore, liquidity is going to go down as well. And history, they have no history. They've been an ETF for 3 days. This is their first official ETF from the company. They had that Trust, which was a quasi ETF, but they're not really an ETF. They've never had any experience with an ETF. Even Valkyrie, which has been a company for a few months, had a proper ETF. They had their futures ETF. They still have a mining ETF. Even Valkyrie has more experience managing an ETF. It's been around for a few months prior to this one. So no, I don't buy it, and I think Grayscale is in a lot of trouble. And I wouldn't be surprised if 2-3 years from now that's going to be the deal. That's going to be a delisted ticker, even though at one point they were at the top. And this goes to show you that it's so hard to maintain a monopoly. Eventually, free market forces just take you out. And Grayscale was unmatched. They were holding almost 700,000 Bitcoin. They're now under 600,000. I want to see them under 100,000. I personally do not like that company. Just like I don't like Coinbase, there's a lot of companies in the space I don't like because they have been proven to be bad actors. BlackRock, on the other hand, has never actually been a bad actor for Bitcoin. I'm not happy with BlackRock. I find problems with BlackRock in other ways, but as far as Bitcoin's concerned, BlackRock has never acted in bad faith towards the Bitcoin ecosystem, and Grayscale has done it too many times to count. So I have no problem with Grayscale getting destroyed in this massacre of ETF dominance.
You talk like a trader, because when we had a GBTC discount, so guys, this is what financial markets are. You don't need to love a company to make money from the company. We had a discount. I think, Tone, you bought GBTC when it was on a massive discount, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I added to my position. I had a GBTC position before that. They were the only game in town. I'm happy that they're not. And I'm not going to be buying a single share of GBTC ever again. I will stick to BlackRock, Fidelity, Valkyrie, and maybe even ARK. We'll see. We'll see what they come up with. We'll see how they're trading.
Yeah, wait and watch. So guys, we are an open space. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, you can either request to speak or you can put it in the comments on the right side corner on your screen.
We
should
have
be able to
Joe
see it.
Carlasare here, and unfortunately, he might not be able to get in because Twitter Spaces is so buggy. It's just rough.
It's been like that. Uh, do we have any comments? Let me just check Tone before we move on. Nothing really to show for, apart from someone saying that you never asked them to sell, whereas you did ask them to sell. I've seen that video, so you're wrong, Phil. I'm so sorry about that. So, Tone, now, as we are seeing all this BTC outflow, and you're saying that Grayscale will come down to around 100,000 BTC. That's where you want to see them. But obviously, we are seeing massive sell-off coming from their side. Do you think if they keep selling 36,000 is a good low? Because if they keep selling and the way we are seeing price go down, we might go below 36,000.
Well, I don't know. I hope we don't. I hope we don't go below 36,000. But like I said, most of the people that are selling GBTC, they are using that money to enter the other ETFs. But a lot of it depends how it's being sold. If all these other ETFs are responsible with professionals at the helm, they have already made deals to acquire this Bitcoin. And these deals are not affecting the current price of Bitcoin because they're made OTC. Maybe they're dealing directly with miners. Maybe they're dealing directly with high net worth holders. And maybe Grayscale didn't anticipate this mass exodus. And maybe they did not have all of these deals in place to sell their Bitcoin. Perhaps they don't want to assist these other ETFs. And they don't want to sell the Bitcoin to these other ETFs. And they are forced to sell more Bitcoin on the open market than these other ETFs are buying on the open market. And therefore, they could be driving the price down because they were unprepared.
That's one perspective to look from GBTC perspective, right? That, okay, this is the news that's driving it, or not the news, I must say. This is the action that is driving the price decline. But we have seen across all halvings that we have had, all three of them, that the price of BTC just closer to halving is around 56 to 52% from all-time high. Is it just like history repeating itself? maybe the news is different, maybe the actions are different, but again, the price is kind of going towards that 50% decline. That 36 to 34K mark before halving, as we are getting closer to halving. Could that be like that technical analysis, isn't it? Patterns which emerge over time. So do you think that could be one of the reasons as well?
It's possible. It's possible, but I don't know. I think something is driving it, and it's not the hodlers of Bitcoin. We are at a time cycle where hodlers of Bitcoin are going to hold their Bitcoin through the halving. No one is trying to time last minute to sell high and buy low before the halving. There's not enough time for that. The halving is less than 3 months away. So I don't think there's a lot of traders out there trying to time this final dip. I really think this is external selling coupled with nobody left to buy to drive the price higher. So it's a combination of a short-term natural pullback, but based on how much Bitcoin is bleeding out of GBTC, I have a feeling they're mostly responsible for this.
True, and I was just going through the charts of most of the crypto assets, like not most, but the ones which I look for, like top 25, top 30. And each one of them is showing RSI divergences. Each one of them is showing overbought across the board on higher time frames. So yes, the market has been giving indication that it wants to, you know, calm down, slow down, come, get a relief, and then look where it wants to move from there. So well timed. And I was looking at your video from yesterday, Tone, on the Financial Summit YouTube channel. It's been going very well. I've been enjoying that. So how is it going for you? Are you liking the new concept?
Yeah, the new channel is good. Matt's been a great host. Clearly, I'm not going to win the trade from today into tomorrow. I really thought that Bitcoin would just hang out and consolidate another day or two before the big crash, but looks like the big crash is coming early. We did have a title of the video this morning, Bitcoin charts looking scary, and that scariness definitely came true in the last 3 to 4 hours or so.
100%, 100%. So, guys, if you haven't subscribed yet, just go to our YouTube channel, financialsummit.com. Financial Summit YouTube channel, and subscribe. We have a show every day with Matt and Tone, and we will be getting more host and more content over the next few weeks, making it much better with research. We're talking to other traders and a lot more. So that is going to be the place for you in this bull market. So remember that. Be there if you are not yet. So, Tone, moving a bit away from Bitcoin, and I want to revisit Bitcoin at a later stage. Let's talk about. Am I connected? Or
Yeah, you're good.
yeah, yeah, I'm good. So let's talk a little bit about Dixie. Uh, Basically, Dixie is looking quite interesting, right? Uh, if we look at the correlations, which I know you do not believe in a correlation between Dixie and Bitcoin, but we are seeing that it has a continuation sort of a scenario, and we might see a more bullish Dixie in the coming few weeks or days. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I don't believe that the correlation between the dollar and Bitcoin matters all that much. The reason is because Bitcoin is a very speculative asset and the dollar is not. What's the best the dollar can do? Go up or down 10% in a year? And Bitcoin can move 10% in a day. So I just don't see that as a correlation. The dollar reversed and started rising at the end of December. And Bitcoin was also rising in the beginning of December because of speculation for the Bitcoin ETF. And I have been bullish on the dollar. I continue to be surprised that the dollar fell as much as it did in the second half of 2023 or in the fourth quarter of 2023. I still think that the US dollar will reach new all-time highs, and it's the euro that is in a lot more trouble into the future than the dollar is.
400%. Don't tell me about euro. I've been trying to long that thing, but it didn't go well for me. But that's completely okay. It's part of the journey, isn't it? So, in regards of dollar getting stronger, in regards of all these things, Do you think Trump has anything to do with this because of the Republican nominee?
I don't think so. Uh, I really don't. The U.S. dollar has been up and down, for the last 3-4 years. Under the it first fell when Biden first got elected. It fell, and after that, it rose. The dollar rose significantly. It corrected in 2022 and 2023. I don't think this has anything to do with who's the president. I think it has more to do with Europe than the dollar. I don't think it's about the dollar rising or getting the U.S. economy getting stronger. I think it's all about the euro and the other European economies. The U.S. dollar, the value of the DXY is measured like 90% against the European currency, the euro, the Swiss franc, the Canadian one, which is almost like a European currency, and the pound. And I think it's them. I think it's mostly them. And when people have confidence in the euro, the dollar goes down. When people lose all confidence in the euro, the dollar goes up. So I don't think it's what is done in America. I think it's more of the global view of the European Union. Oh boy, I don't hear anything.
Sorry, it was my bad. I was on mute and I was trying to remove some tweets from our nest. So, sticking to Trump, Tone, first of all, could you, before I dive into the next question, could you explain to our audience what CBDC really is and what does it stand for, so that we can dive into the next question about Donald Trump giving some comments?
Sure. So you said CBDCs, right?
Yes.
So CBDC stands for central bank digital currency. And my big problem with that notation is the central bank already has a digital currency. It's called the dollar, it's called the euro, it's called the Canadian dollar, Japanese yen. They're all central bank digital currencies. The only difference is that they still have a small part, a tiny little sliver of physical cash printed on paper, dollar bills or euro bills. Now, the goal of CBDCs is actually twofold. One is the removal of the physical cash component. That is goal number one. And goal number two is to remove money creation from the private banks and put it solely in the hands of the federal government. Now, with that comes additional benefits like full surveillance of the digital currency by the government. Basically, that's it. Now, why they need to create a whole new currency baffles me. Maybe it's because they're government employees and they want to give themselves something more to do so they can get paid more money. I don't know. Okay. But there is no actual need to create a brand new currency unless they know that the current currency is going to collapse and they want to trick people into offering them something new. Well, it's not the old dollar, it's the new dollar. But there's no difference between the new dollar and the old dollar other than there's no physical cash component. So with all that aside, obviously the goal for governments is to remove physical cash so that they could have full control of how you spend your money, and they can censor you and they can freeze your transactions. And this is why Bitcoin is so important. The closer governments get to full-blown surveillance without a cash component to their money, the more Bitcoin becomes useful and the more people realize the unconfiscatable property and the censorship-resistant value transfer property, along with you can't devalue Bitcoin because the supply is kind of set in stone. We can debate whether the supply issue is good or bad, but it's certainly good for the price of Bitcoin to rise. Having a finite supply of an asset certainly does well for the value of that asset. Whether Bitcoin becomes a great medium of exchange under a fixed supply scenario is highly debatable. And I know that the libertarians and the hard money guys will, scream up and down that the world is better under a gold standard. And I think a lot of them have blinders on, and they don't realize all the problems that the gold standard created and why the gold standard was removed to begin with. And going back to that book, the famous book, what do you call it? Oh, man. The Wizard of Oz and the Yellow Brick Road was actually, a march to remove the gold standard because it was creating lots of problems in the industry. So there's certainly an argument to be made. And I'm not saying that having a finite supply of money and trying to build an economy out of that is definitely the wrong way to go. I'm just saying the issue needs to be properly explored, properly debated. There are good experts on both sides, whether there should be more of an elastic money supply versus a finite static money supply. However, the elastic money supply we have now is supposed to be expanding during good economic times and contracting during, supposed to be expanding during bad economic times where creation is needed, and the other way around. So unfortunately, our current money supply doesn't do that. All right, our current money supply is completely politicized, and governments print money for their own personal wants and to start wars around the world. So that part needs to be removed. So this is why this discussion is so tricky, where if there was a more programmatic and a more neutral and a less politicized system that creates an elastic money supply that adds more money to the economy during certain times and removes money from the economy during other times, if this was more programmatic and not, handed and to the politicians that pinky swear that they're going to do what's right, that system doesn't work. And finite hard money is significantly better than that system, because with hard money, the politicians can't, screw it up. But if there was a programmatic means of properly having an elastic money supply without certain people doing what they want to do with that, ability, now we can properly debate whether a finite money supply is better than a proper economic elastic money supply. That's a debate I would love to have. Not sure. Again, we'll have to experiment with both. We've never really had a proper. Well, I mean, one of them has never existed, right? We've tried a finite money supply gold, had good times and bad times. We've tried let the politicians decide how much money supply we have. It's not the Fed. It's mostly the politicians. The Fed also has to do with it. I would say it's 70% politicians, 30% Fed. But we've never had a programmatic version of an elastic money supply. And now that the technology allows for it, maybe 100 years from now, after Bitcoin's reign of a finite money supply, there may be a nice happy medium between a hard asset money like Bitcoin. I'm sure it'll be something different in 100 years or 1,000 years, who knows, and programmatic elasticity.
So thanks a lot, Tone, for explaining to everyone what CBDC or digital money really is and what it should be. So Trump came out in his press conference, or whatever you call it, in his, what's the right word, where he was speaking to the public. And he said, as your president, I will never allow creation of central bank digital currencies. Such a currency would give our federal government absolute control over your money. And at the same time, the Argentinian president said a similar thing, as saying that do not surrender to the advance of the state, that the state is not the solution, the state is the problem itself. You are true protagonist of the story and all. So he basically wanted to say that states will be coming back, coming to get your money, like get your Bitcoin or get your money. Do you agree with both the statements? And if you do you think Trump saying that he will not allow CBDC is a true statement from him, or it's just a way for him to get the votes?
It's a completely silly and false statement because there already is a CBDC. 98, everything that in that statement is like, but everything he said that he's not going to let the government to do, the government does it in 98% of all cases, other than paying somebody in physical cash. I mean, the US government confiscated $300 billion of Russian money, and now they're trying to find a way to steal it instead of just freezing it. That is the state. That is what the state does. That's what a central bank digital currency does, is the control of money by not necessarily central bank. Again, things are being conflicted. The central bank has a specific job. The Treasury has a specific job. I think most of our problems are due to the Treasury, not due to the central bank. Everyone wants to blame the central bank. No one seems to want to blame the politicians and the Treasury. I put most of the blame on all our financial problems on the government, not on the central bank. And there is some, some people can say that the central bank is part of the government. I actually am one of these people. I do believe that the central bank is not all that independent. It's somewhat independent, but not fully independent. The federal government decides who heads the Federal Reserve. The federal government has a lot of say in the Federal Reserve. Occasionally, like right now, you get the central bank to be kind of anti-government, and they're exercising their, 40 to 30% autonomy against the government, and they're using that in full force. But most of the time, the central bank is fully on board with the agenda of the federal government. And back in the day, back in 2014, when the Russia-Ukraine situation first started with Crimea, it was during the Obama administration. They tried to ban Russia from SWIFT. They tried to do everything they did in 2022, but the SWIFT said no. They're like, no, we're an independent, international payment rails. We're not going to be political. So what did the United States do? Well, of course, they replaced the head of SWIFT in subsequent years. And the new head of SWIFT doesn't have that policy. The new head of SWIFT is like, oh, what do you want me to do? Sure, done. Here's the stamp. Okay. So Trump is being very disingenuous unless Trump is going to, tell the Treasury Department that next year, there will be no deficit. I don't care what you have to do. I don't care if you have to fire every teacher. I don't care if you have to fire every military person. I don't care what you have to do, but the U.S. federal government will not run a deficit, and the U.S. federal government will not raise taxes. Taxes stay as they are. So now we will not run $1 trillion deficit the way we did in the past. That is the U.S. government living within their means, and that alters the system, right? Also, he would have to go to SWIFT and say, you are now an independent agency. Anything that the United States government tells you to do, you don't have to do it, okay? And he has to go to the banks and say, hey, we need to remove all the money laundering laws. Money laundering laws are immoral and illegal, and they no longer exist. Therefore, no $600 transaction verification by the IRS, no suspicious activity reports. You're a bank, and you have moral obligations. And if we end up catching you, the bank, doing money laundering for drug cartels, and we can prove that you have done money laundering for drug cartels, you, the CEO of the bank, will lose your entire net worth. We claw back all your money, and you can face up to 10 years in prison. So this is now your problem. This is not our problem. And you need to be more responsible, and you need to run the system, but we're not going to check it. We're only going to investigate from our side if we suspect you of doing something wrong. Now, if Trump put in these kinds of laws, then sure, then the central government is not surveilling your transactions. But right now, they are. I think you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I was speaking on mute. My bad. So, okay. So I basically want to touch on two things, Tone. So one thing is Trump saying all these things and everything that's happening. And as you stated, that it's all for the votes and nothing's going to happen until unless there are much further changes that are going to happen. But on the other hand, we are seeing now bigger players like BlackRock and all. Obviously, they have entered the BTC ETF space. Do you think there is a future in the coming, let's say, a decade down the line, where these currencies, which are, US dollars, euro, pound, Indian rupees, some of the countries who are kind of a bit more ahead in terms of CBDC, like India has already implemented it. Do you think that there will be a time in the coming future where BTC might replace their currencies and they might realize that, oh, we already had a solution and we are just trying to find new solutions for a problem that is already resolved?
I don't think so. I think a finite money supply creates a lot of problems for most governments. That's why they want to have control of how much money supply they have. Now, a lot of countries are on the US dollar, and these are somewhat smaller economies. I really don't see a country like India giving up their control of money, or Russia, or China, or the United States. A small country like El Salvador can do it for a while. I live here in Panama. Panama is a US dollar-based country. Everyone just literally uses the US dollars here. And Panama does not control the creation of their currency. So it works for some countries. It'll be hard. Like the bigger your country, the harder this is to pull off. What I envision long before a country can adopt, a big country can adopt Bitcoin as a currency, is they would use Bitcoin as the reserve of their country. And again, a lot of governments might be weary about doing that, right? Especially if it's a democratic government. You are being responsible. We can use the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, right? You filled it up, you had it full, and then here comes an administration with a president that doesn't know what day it is, and they sell 50% of the petroleum reserve just to win a midterm election. So for political reasons. So that's the problem, right? You could be a country, you could shore up with Bitcoin, have a bunch of Bitcoin, and then a new president comes in and he robs it all for himself. So this is why it's tricky. And this is why it's debatable what form of government is best. The United States has been a republic, mimicking the Roman Republic of the turn of the millennia. And they mimicked it. And the Roman Republic became one of the most corrupt governments in history. And that's where America is now. We're on the verge. We're on the verge of, say, 60 BC Roman times, when Caesar had to cross the Rubicon, which is a river, and Caesar took his army to Rome because the politicians were so corrupt, and he decided to have an overthrow. And I think Caesar was one of the greatest leaders. And it depends. Lots of people wrote about that time period. I think the play Julius Caesar did a huge disservice, where Caesar was cheered by the people because he came and he got rid of all the corrupt senators, and they all fled. And this is what Trump swore he would do in his first term, and he did not. He did absolutely nothing. So he did not hold his promise. And if Trump gets elected again, I hope he does hold the promise and do kind of what Caesar did. In a way, Trump was similar to Caesar in that Caesar didn't throw those senators in prison, even though they were corrupt. Caesar tried to change the system by allowing a lot of these senators back, but now they would be more responsible and less corrupt because he was ruled the first dictator. And right now, the word dictator has a negative connotation. At the time, it didn't have a negative connotation. It was just a different governance model where Caesar was the dictator. He had a lot more power than the senators, but he welcomed most of those senators back to continue in their ruling positions. And how did it end? Well, they all stabbed Caesar on the Senate floor. Our society has slightly evolved not to stab politicians on the Senate floor. We've evolved a little bit further in that there aren't violent fist fights on the Senate floor either. Also, probably because all of our politicians are like 95 years old. That's probably one of the reasons why there aren't as many fist fights on the Senate floor than in days past. But in general, that was also Trump's downfall. Trump's downfall is that he left way too many people that hated him in the cabinets. So maybe he'll learn from his mistakes. And if Trump gets elected again, he should arrest the majority of the senators and the majority of the House representative members for all their bribery. And I hope he does. And we'll see what happens to him and his life. Maybe it will end like Caesar's, maybe not. We'll find out. But I already forgot where I was going with this speech off of the original question. What was it again? You're on mute. Oh, okay. Can you guys hear me? Can I get a thumbs up? Because Twitter seems to have crashed for our hosts and moderators, and I have no idea if you guys can hear me. And I could be speaking to the ether. All right, I got a thumbs up from Motorist. Motorist, you want to come up here? I need another speaker here. Otherwise, I'm...
Yeah, we do need speakers. Guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to join as a speaker. We can ask. We are happy to give you the space.
Speaking of politicians, I'm bringing Michael up as well. I shot him an invite. Motorist is here as well. And yeah, so anyone remembers how I got on that rant? Oh, you asked me about politics and Trump, I think. People are muted.
Sorry, what was that?
Man, how did I get on the tangent of republics versus dictatorships?
Well, on Fin Summit. We could create a new Twitter space or a Twitter account for that, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you a little. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear the financial summit, Tone?
I can.
Okay, we can all hear each other.
Right. So anyway, like I said, I don't remember how I ended up getting on that particular tangent, but yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah. I would move on to the next one. Tone, I wanted to basically talk a little bit about SEC versus Coinbase case that's been going on. So, do you have any?
You know, I was asked that question earlier today on an interview that's going to probably be published on Monday. I actually have no idea what's going on with that case. This is where Joe Carlasare would be so useful. I have not kept up with it. I've just been too busy with other stuff, mostly with the ETF stuff. I know nothing about Coinbase versus SEC, at least the latest version.
No, that's fine. I can give you a little bit of idea, and obviously you can give your comments, even if we can tell the public these are not professional comments. These are just his understandings. So SEC has argued that Coinbase is trying to create a different version of the OE test. So they're saying that they think they're making up a new test, and they believe that their position is that one of the most faithful and consistent, but in fact, compelled with the OE test, it's the just not plausible reading. Like that's what they're claiming. And at that point of time, the judge basically said that with whatever you have presented, and on the fact that people buying tokens on the Coinbase platform may not seek it for profit. They're just buying it so that they can use it in one way or the other. So the judge basically asked SEC that why shouldn't they just listen to Senator Loomis and just dismiss the case as it is. So that's where we are right now. Tone, what do you think? Like, is SEC losing all the faith in regards of all the crypto cases that they've filed against all of these different companies? Like, they've lost track of them and they just don't know where they are, and they should just accept defeat from most of them.
I mean, the SEC has just been grossly incompetent in proving their case. The reality is Coinbase is being very disingenuous. No one is buying these shit coins in order to use them in some kind of blockchain. Everybody is buying them for speculation. Now, Coinbase can claim that they don't. They may find 5 or 10 people that claim that they don't. And I understand that there was lots of people that originally invested in Ethereum that thought that weren't necessarily speculating that the price of Ethereum will make them rich. I know a few people that contributed to that project, not necessarily knowing that they were going to even get a token out of it, and they weren't sure. But in today's day and age, it is complete bullshit for Coinbase to claim that people are buying these tokens from Coinbase to actually use them. No one uses these tokens. Meanwhile, the companies that create these tokens, they make up an excuse that these tokens are needed for the use case, when in reality, this use case was never needed. Binance saying that, well, the token needs to exist because it lowers people's fees is ridiculous, right? That's a problem of their own creation. They're like, we're going to charge you a higher fee unless you speculate in our token. And then you can use our token to lower that fee. You are basically convincing your users to speculate in your token just so that you can have a pretend use case. So whether the SEC is able to prove this in a court of law, I have no idea, right? The SEC has proven themselves to be completely incompetent. So should they quit? Probably. Like, the SEC is being paid by my tax money, and lots of people listening, your tax money goes to fund the SEC. If the SEC is going to be totally useless in doing this job, then the SEC should not exist, okay? Then let the market figure it out, right? The last thing I want to do is pay taxes for something that spends a bunch of money on lawyers and can't win a single case. Even though I agree with the SEC on this case, but if they can't win it, then I don't want to fund the agency. Now, of course, if the agency gets dismantled, that money isn't going to get back to us in a tax return. That money is just going to, get used for wars. So now I'm back to maybe just use my money and pay the SEC lawyers.
Motorist, what's your opinion on this, if you're aware of the case?
I'm not really aware of the details of the case. I just know that Coinbase was mentioned that they're up to their same old, nonsense, just like how the Franklin Templeton Twitter account was taken over by a bunch of shitcoiners who were just constantly tweeting all this nonsense about, about NFTs and about Ethereum and Solana. It's just a big joke. And I think it's incumbent on Bitcoiners to try to, call this stuff out when we see it. I wanted to actually ask Tone a question, if it's all right with everyone, regarding some of the mining stocks, because they've been taking a big hit lately. I just wanted to ask them specifically about some mining stocks. Okay, so Tone, I noticed that you do like Bitfarms. Is there a specific reason you prefer Bitfarms over, say, Riot, and I don't know, maybe Marathon and CleanSpark, other than you have a close connection with somebody who works there? And also, I've looked at the Valkyrie Bitcoin mining ETF, and that includes shares of lots of stocks, but I don't think it includes Riots. Is there anything specifically about Riot that you want to stay away from, or is it just a choice that you had to make? You had to just pick one or a few of them.
Tone, you are muted if you're trying to answer.
Okay, yes, I was trying to talk. So you nailed it, Motorist. The reason why Bitfarms is one of my favorite stocks is because I do it's not because I know somebody at Bitfarms, but it's because I know somebody at Bitfarms who does presentations at my events. And those presentations are about their company and what they're doing. They are very open about their books, about their future, where they're headed. And also, and this is something they're not going to show publicly, research that they have done on other companies. So it's one thing looking at Riot's research, and I would love to see any research that Riot has done about Bitfarms, right? Like a proper company would always do due diligence and research on their competitors. It's not insider information. I mean, they're not, they don't have an insider working over at Riot, right? But they are a professional mining company. And they know the business better than me. Therefore, they know the business of their competitors better, even with full publicly available information. And I've seen a lot of data on a lot of other mining companies from publicly available information that was put together by experts at other miners. And I haven't seen this kind of stuff from others. And therefore, I knew for a while that Bitfarms was way better positioned for the future than other miners. Now, does that necessarily that it's not going to work out in real life? Maybe, maybe not, right? Riot's a famous company. They have ads everywhere. Maybe FOMO will set in. But when I enter a traditional market asset, it has to be fundamentally sound. And to me, say in CleanSpark is the same way. I've met people at CleanSpark. I've seen their presentations, and they're a publicly traded company. They're transparent, and I think Bitfarms has handled this downturn better than most other publicly traded miners. They're still holding the prior swing high support. Most other miners are way below that, and I think Bitfarms has held up fairly nicely as well during this Bitcoin downturn, and I don't know why the Valkyrie ETF would not have Riot shares in it. And we saw what happened with Core Scientific. And I just think that a company like Bitfarms is unlikely to be in the position of Core Scientific. Now, I'm not saying Riot is likely to be in the position of Core Scientific, but again, everything is percentages. By percentage terms, I have more confidence that Bitfarms will not be Core Scientific at a higher percent confidence than a company like Riot or Mara.
Does that help, motorists?
Yeah, you mentioned Core Scientific. It was interesting because Bob Burnett was complaining about Core Scientific from Barefoot Mining, and I believe he's now with Ocean Mining. Bob Burnett was saying how Core Scientific was buying every single ASIC they could get their hands on and overpaying for all of them. And basically, not only did that lead to them bankrupting themselves, but it also caused a lot of smaller miners to get into financial trouble. So not only did they bankrupt themselves, they also kind of hurt the whole, pleb smaller time mining space by doing that. So hopefully Riot and CleanSpark and Bitfarms are not in that situation. They have people who are working at those companies who can actually do some math and do some risk analysis. But yeah, that's all I had. Thanks guys for having me up.
Right. And like CleanSpark is a pretty big company. Bitfarms is not. Bitfarms is a small company. So Bitfarms will never be in that position of that Core Scientific was in, buying up all the ASICs. I mean, maybe if all these big companies do what Core Scientific did and blow themselves up, while a smaller company like Bitfarms is able to navigate that environment and not be the casualty of those screw-ups. And these kinds of things would allow Bitfarms to grow bigger. But we had an amazing debate on public miners versus private miners at Unconfiscatable. We're going to start releasing the individual videos soon. But the entire thing was live streamed. It's still on my YouTube channel, so you can go ahead and find it there. It was an excellent debate between public miners and private miners. Somebody's muted.
I am getting stuck again and again, Tone, on this space. It's so laggy. All right. Moving on, Tone. Let's move on to the traditional markets for a bit. Oh, by the way, did you see that uh, Bitcoin ETF is now the second most traded by volume multiplied by the price?
No, but
Uh,
what do you mean? What do you mean Bitcoin ETF? There's like 10 of them now. You got to be more
yeah, I
specific.
mean, as in the whole space. As of now, it's overtaken, I think, silver in regards of ETF volume. I saw this tweet. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, we also have to be careful with that, right? Like, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are selling Grayscale. They're buying others. It's not going to stay this way. The first day had ridiculous volume. Now the volume is a little bit smaller. Whenever the price of Bitcoin has serious volatility on a day like today, volume will probably go up. Give it a few months, and the volumes are going to be, more in line with some of the other ETFs.
Oh, 100%. So, Tone, moving on to the traditional markets, how are you liking NASDAQ, Dow, and S&P after three back-to-back negative days? What are you looking at, and where do you see the market going from here?
Yeah, waiting for like the daily charts to load, but looking at the weekly chart, I like this rally here at the end of the week. This is great. The S&P is back to its swing high. The Nasdaq probably back at its all-time high, at least. A huge deviation today between Bitcoin and stock market. Usually, when a stock market rises, it at least rallies the Bitcoin miners, rallies companies like MicroStrategy. That didn't happen today. Rallies Bitcoin itself. And again, this makes me speculate that GBTC was not prepared and they're selling their Bitcoin more on the open market, crashing the price of Bitcoin than proper OTC deals like many of these other ETFs on the back end.
Sorry, I didn't see the daily chart. I did not realize until now because I had this ready in mid-afternoon about Dow having three back-to-back losing days. And I was like, okay. And as when he said it's Nasdaq is close to its all-time high, I'm like, what? And I saw the chart. There was a massive pump, and I think this came after the unemployment numbers came out because until that time I was actively looking at the chart. So this that looks really good from what we see on the daily chart for now. So to like it's close to all-time highs. It is showing strength as of today. But do you think this is going to continue, or it's going to v- just be like a grab the liquidity from the top, get some kind of a get some bills trapped and then just go downwards for a correction, or do you think it's something that can be sustained?
I think the stock market rally can be sustained. I'm very bullish for the year. Yes, there could be black swan events. Don't underestimate the election cycle. I talked a little bit of politics earlier. The Democrats did everything, including selling half the Strategic Petroleum Reserve 2 years ago in order to get reelected, to drop the price at the pump. Who knows what they're going to do this time? If things get really bad, they'll take us to war and potentially suspend elections altogether. I mean, they will do anything to prevent Trump from winning. Because as I get back to the earlier point, Trump winning may actually put them in prison. And you can see what's happening right now over in Israel. There's no way Israel is going to do a ceasefire because that could cause Benjamin Netanyahu to go to prison. If he creates peace, he will then potentially be in serious trouble personally. It's the same thing, only in the United States. So they will do anything and everything to hold on to power. So I am kind of scared what can happen in the US, which is why I plan to spend very little time in the US this year. Might be up in the woods at my cabin with some guns, which is great. During the summer, cooking some barbecue. Other than that, now that it's winter, I want to stay away from the big cities. I'm down here in Panama, and then go to places like Dubai and some of the other places. So I think this is going to be one crazy year. But in this crazy year, I think people are going to find safety in the U.S. stock market. I remain grossly bullish on the U.S. stock market, even in light of all the political craziness. And on that note, I see Michael's hand up. And Michael, floor is yours.
Thanks, Tone. Thank you for doing these spaces. I dial in often. I'm one of the guys dumping GBTC. I'm buying Fidelity because I like the self-storage that they're doing, and they've been mining since probably 2014, so they know what they're doing in my retirement account. And I have another question for the retirement account. I have a Vanguard S&P 500, and I do not like Vanguard because they're not offering ETF to their clients. So I want to get out of VOO. And what should I get into if I want to just transition to a new S&P 500? Any recommendations? Thank you.
Yeah, there's two others. I mean, SPY is the more popular ones. One second, I'm actually Googling this because I want to remember their tickers. And yeah, there's usually about 5 decent, competitors. And I mean, IVV is the BlackRock one. And it's all about 2 things, it's all about liquidity and it's all about, the management cost of the ETF. SPY is a popular one and iShares has one as well. So there's lots of options there. Yeah, if you're VOO is considered one of the best, but if you don't want to support Fidelity for reasons, then yeah, you can switch to one of the other ones.
Oh, it's Vanguard, right? They are blocking clients from buying Bitcoin ETFs. Vanguard.
Correct. Oh, sorry. Yeah,
I don't think they're blocking. Yeah. They're just not offering the product. So yeah, well, different way to say it.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you shouldn't have to support Vanguard products if they're not allowing their customers to use it. I find that a valiant effort. Yeah, SPY is a simple choice, but there are others. It's I mean, it's an easy. I don't want to say Google it, but you can just you actually can just Google it. Like put all your options in a spreadsheet of what like the top 5 competitors to VOO are, and then from there it doesn't really matter. They're all almost identical. As long as you're in the top 5 by liquidity and in the top 3 by management fee.
I believe SPY has a management fee of like 0.1% or just under 0.1%. So it's a pretty low management fee, and SPY has pretty good liquidity. So I mean, it's not a bad option. I do, 1 cheer for SPY here.
Very good. But Fidelity, I like, again, they've been mining for a while, for years, and they do self-custody, which is, I appreciate and respect. Thank you.
And good to hear you, Michael.
For your question. Cool. So yeah, Tone, last comments on gold and silver. Where do you see them going from here because of the conditions that we are seeing in the geopolitical scenario of UK and US attacking, I think, Yemen, some part of Yemen, some terrorist group, I guess. I'm not so sure about the political scenario there. But where do you see gold and silver go from here? Because if stock market is bullish, in the geopolitical scenario is what it is, I feel gold and silver should be bullish as well.
I agree. I am bullish on gold and silver. I am more bullish on gold than silver. In the short term, silver can give you a higher return, but every time there is a pullback, silver is going to absolutely crush you. So I am bullish on precious metals. I'm bullish on pretty much all commodities. The only place where I'm bearish is government bonds. All government bonds. I am bearish on the public sector. I'm bearish on the bond sector, and I'm bullish on the private sector. Private sector being gold, because you can hold that asset privately, and private sector being the stock market, because these are private companies that can move jurisdictions. So I am bullish on Bitcoin, stocks, and gold, and I've had this position for quite a while, and I've been bearish on the bond sector for quite a while as well. I think it's going to be years before I change these outlooks. Gold, Bitcoin, and stocks need to go significantly higher for me to lose confidence in the private sector.
Well, you heard it here, guys. For a few years, remember that. And I totally agree with you, Tone. I think the scenario as we are seeing across the globe, it's getting more and more scary, to be honest. Every day I was basically it feels scared to go anywhere right now to any country and then realize that something's happening. Well, there are some safe havens, but still. Uh, Tone, that's all the questions I had for today. We didn't have many speakers and we basically lost Joe as well, unluckily. Anything that you want to add to this space?
No, that's about it. I know we got a little bit too much into politics, which we try not to do at the Financial Summit, but I did try to keep it as financially related as possible. But as far as the price of Bitcoin is concerned, I think 36,000 is going to be the floor. I think by the time it gets to 36,000, GBTC would have sold enough Bitcoin. Enough people would have already switched over. They would stabilize a bit. And hopefully the drop ends there.
So what was your trade of the day, Tone, for today, by the way? I didn't see today's video, so I'm just curious. Or shall I watch the video? Tone, are you're on mute, I
Yeah,
guess.
I'm on mute. So the last 2 days, I was actually bearish. I've won those trades. Today I was also bearish, but for some reason I thought that we would drop today during the market hours. But because of a big stock market rise, I really thought that after an initial drop, Bitcoin price would still rally in the second half of the day and be a little more positive tomorrow, hovering around 43,000 tomorrow. And then I expected the big drop a little later on. But the big drop came early, so I do have a bullish trade on in our daily mock trading situation, but we're not keeping track of P&L. Starting tomorrow, I think, or starting Monday, the contest is going to move on to keeping track of P&L. So yeah, we're going to have to be a lot more careful about what we do. We may also put in stop losses and take profits, but we're still trying out. It's a new show, but yeah, so I'm not happy about the trade, but my view on the market was accurate. I was not gonna. I'm still holding 75% cash in my retirement account since I've exited 75% of GBTC and converted the majority of that remaining 25% to the BlackRock ETF. I'll probably convert the remainder over to the Fidelity ETF. I just didn't want to contribute to any more selling by GBTC, but clearly it doesn't matter. And I'm just being lazy to switch it over. They're all correlated. They all act the same. But yeah, eventually I want zero exposure to GBTC, and it's a ticker I never plan to buy again.
Okay, cool. I'll remove it from my watch list as well. Tone, we have a question from Never Give Up. He's saying that he wanted to know that since there is a limited supply of BTC, all these ETF companies they're going to do paper trading. Well, that's the comment. So the 4-year BTC cycle will not be there in the future 4 years. Also, these big companies may drive BTC anyhow they want. Do you think that is a true statement?
Yeah, it's a little gloom and doomish. It's not that these companies don't push Bitcoin around. These ETF companies are very regulated. They have one job. That job is to make sure that the number of shares available for trading equals the number of Bitcoins, stored away in a HODL position. That's it. And it's not a one-to-one, like each share is backed by like a fraction of a Bitcoin, but it has to match up. And these companies, they're not in the business of manipulating the price of Bitcoin. That's not what they do. That's not how they earn their money. They earn their money by maximizing the amount of Bitcoin they have in custody. That's what gives them the money. That's the management fee. The management fee is on the storage of the Bitcoin. Each of these companies is competing for your business so that they hold the maximum amount of Bitcoin in custody. And this Bitcoin in custody, it stays there. Now, yes, on a daily basis, they will either have to add more Bitcoin to their storage or sell Bitcoin in their storage. But the reason why they're selling Bitcoin in their storage is because more people sold ETF shares than buyers were willing to buy them. So, granted, there will be less liquidity on the spot exchanges that identify price discovery, and that can drive, greed and fear and greed in these spot ETFs, which then enforces either FOMO to take more Bitcoin off of those spot exchanges or more Bitcoin onto those spot exchanges. But I don't think it alters the 4-year cycle at all. In fact, if the price of Bitcoin doesn't significantly rise over $100,000 area, the next wave is just going to be more volatile because there's less and less Bitcoin available for price discovery, or less and less money being moved back and forth. Imagine if the price of Bitcoin goes to $1 million tomorrow and the spot exchanges have half their Bitcoin withdrawn, but the price of Bitcoin just went up. It didn't go up double to account for half the Bitcoin being gone. The price of Bitcoin went up over 10 times, went up 20 times. So you remove half the Bitcoin, you raise the value of Bitcoin 20 times, you remove half the Bitcoin, the amount of wealth traded on these spot exchanges has gone up tenfold, 10x. Therefore, it's a lot harder to push the price of Bitcoin around. Even though there's less Bitcoin on the exchanges, it's harder to manipulate the price if you are a whale. Therefore, it still boils down to that. It boils down how much Bitcoin is available on Bitcoin spot exchanges for price discovery. Everything starts there. And if these ETFs suck a lot of that Bitcoin out, we're just increasing volatility. As the price of Bitcoin rises, we decrease volatility. So it's one of these, market games that eventually finds equilibrium, and it stays at equilibrium for a while. And then something like the halving comes that alters equilibrium in a single day. 10 Bitcoin ETFs get approved, alters equilibrium in a single day. Option markets will eventually come to these spot ETFs, and that's going to alter equilibrium because now there is a whole new group of speculators that are going to probably want to hedge their positions with actual Bitcoin. So lots of things that come into the system that alter the system, and then it finds new equilibrium.
So what's your timeline, Tone, for this option market scenario to open up in the coming future? You're muted, Tone.
Sorry, did you say option markets?
Yeah, as in like the spot ETF, Bitcoin ETF options market. What's your timeline on that?
Between 3 and 9 months.
Okay, because I've not seen normally I've not seen a new ETF and then the options opening up. So that's why I was asking, how long does it normally take for such a scenario to play out? Because that would bring in a lot of volume.
There is no time element. It has to do with liquidity. Your underlying asset has to be liquid enough not to be overly manipulated by the options market. So it's a matter of liquidity. The more people buy into the ETFs and trade the ETFs, the sooner the options will come. And obviously the options will show up on the most liquid one, like BlackRock, long before on a less liquid one like Valkyrie.
And once that happens, that will again increase the strength or the engagement in that specific ETF, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, and it would, and by having options markets on these ETFs, it would actually create more liquidity in the ETF itself because now there's option hedgers, and people are willing to buy the ETF to sell the covered calls. So there's this whole other group of people that would be willing to hold a Bitcoin ETF if they're able to hedge it with, say, a put option, which is like an insurance contract, or if they're able to profit from it with a covered call, which gives them a little more income by giving up some of the upside. So there's definitely an advantage to having options on your ETF. It makes your ETF a lot more desirable, but your ETF has to be liquid enough to handle options being written on it. So it's a matter of liquidity. If BlackRock gets there soon, the options, regulators will allow options to be traded on there soon. It's not like what happened with the ETF, where the SEC wanted to give everyone a fair shot on day one, not to give anyone a competitive advantage. I think it'll be very different for the options market. They may do it, these top three can get options now, but the rest of you guys will have to wait. But that really hurts the other guys, which is why the race is on to be the top 5 most liquid Bitcoin ETF. And I already see a couple that are probably going to be forever laggers, Franklin Templeton being one of those.
Well, Franklin Templeton have been doing some stuff on Twitter last few days. It's been crazy. I wanted to talk about it today, but I think after I read the tweets, I was like, well, it does not deserve our time, because they've been like tweeting about NFTs, tweeting about shitcoins, tweeting about layer 2s, ordinals, and I was like, why are you doing this? But it is what it is for them. So guys, if you haven't visited our website, do visit our website. It's thefinancialsummit.com. The Financial Summit, if you don't know, it's an event that happens on a yearly basis. And next event is going to be in Maldives in March 2025. It's a gathering of traders, financial experts, hedge fund managers, money managers, and entrepreneurs who come down for a 5-day period, for a conference style, classroom style conference, where we learn, we teach, and we talk to each other to see where can we excel and make partnerships with others. So yeah, if you haven't visited, do visit our website. If you pre-book now, you will get a good discount. If you do it later, then well, you'll have to pay the full price. So do visit our website for that. Tone, thank you so much. Any final thoughts? Muted, Tone.
Sure. Oh, yeah. One quick thought. There was also a question about a company like Circle going IPO. Circle is not that different than Coinbase. And there's no problem with that. The traditional companies are going IPO. Crypto companies are going IPO in the traditional markets. I don't know what the future holds. My view of where America is going. I think America is going to break up into multiple countries. And when it does, I don't know what's going to happen to the most stable, most trusted financial market in the world. It can lose that trust. Are people going to trust the Chinese exchanges? Maybe not. Russian exchanges? Probably not. So what's the future? Well, if 20 years from now, the Bitcoin blockchain is the most trusted, there may be a second layer on top of the Bitcoin blockchain, and we can have, public companies or private companies going public for people's investment on the Bitcoin blockchain through tokenization. Is this something that's possible in the future? Absolutely. But we'll see where it goes. And right now, a company like Circle is going public on the traditional market. 20 years from now, a company like Disney may be going public on the Bitcoin blockchain. So we don't know which direction technology will lead.
To be honest, that's what blockchain was meant to be. Like at the end of the day, it is a signature, or it's a transaction saying that you own, or you bought this thing, or you sold this thing, or you did something about any stuff. And I feel that a lot of exchanges are already looking into this. I think LSE just implemented the blockchain and said that in future we will hold these transactions on a blockchain. So yeah, I totally agree with you, Tone. I feel we are not, I think 20 years down the line, I think is still too far away that you are saying. I really feel from a tech perspective, in the next 4 to 5 years, we might see such a transition happening where some company will say we are going, basically we are tokenizing everything and our stocks are tokenized, and this is how we want it to be traded.
Yeah, that was Patrick Burns' thing. He wanted to put a stock market, his company Overstock, and put a stock market on the blockchain. I'm not sure how successful that was. You may just be better off getting an email sent to you with a timestamp that proves you own something rather than having to put it on the blockchain. It might be just an easier way to do it rather than doing a Bitcoin transaction.
Right. There were two issues with that, right? Well, actually, maybe there were three issues with that. One, it was Patrick Byrne, who people see as a crazy libertarian. Two, it was his own blockchain and not the Bitcoin blockchain. And three, they had a token involved. And the token involved was part of his own blockchain. That's two. And three, they were unreasonably early. They were early not just by 5 years, possibly multiple decades, right? We are so far away from that. So sometimes being too early is not great.
I agree. So yes, guys, thank you so much for joining in today to listening to us, and thanks Stone, Motorist, and Michael for joining the speaker panel. I really appreciate all your time. Tone, I look forward to talking to you over the weekend, and hopefully I'll be able to get Joe because I really want to understand a little bit more about what's going on with SEC and Coinbase, because I feel that might be the next trigger for some sort of bullish price action in Bitcoin or before the halving and then comes halving. So looking forward to our weekend talk, Tone. Thank you so much for joining, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.